Welcome back to Square Off. The news for Republican congressional candidates in Arizona isn't good right now. Polling by Republican-aligned firms shows swing voters stampeding to the Democratic side. The state's two swing districts, CD1 in the Northeast Valley and CD6 in the Tucson area, could swing from Republican to Democratic. Republican candidates have attached themselves to President Donald Trump, but 6 months out from Election Day, is Trump the problem? Joining us to answer those questions are the political panel, Republican Lisa Everett, the patriot in heels on social media and former LD29 Republican chair, and Democrat Jeannie Castine, executive director of the Secular Coalition for Arizona and former governing board president of the Crichton School District. Welcome to Sunday Square Off.
Thanks so much for having me.
Good to see you both here. Thought we'd have some activists for a change. See what that goes. Well, that sounds like. I want to start with your thoughts about the Supreme Court ruling on the Voting Rights Act, the redistricting decision, and the comments by Secretary Fontes, who we just heard, and Senate President Peterson. Lisa, I'll start with you, and particularly Senate President Peterson. Was he in a line with calling the law or parts of it racist?
I don't understand why we're even talking about race regarding this, because you cannot classify black and brown voters voting one way or another. They have their own mind, just like all of us at this panel. So I don't really understand the thought process behind what Peterson was saying, but the reality is we have a commission, and we do this after we count all of our residents in our state every year with the census, or every 10 years with the census. So this is really not an issue for Arizona.
Should Democrats, though, at the legislature be concerned about Republicans trying to do something, I don't know what it would be, to tinker with the district lines?
I mean, I feel like we could always be a little bit concerned about some of the shenanigans that happen at the legislature. But again, going back to what Ms. Everett said, we have a redistricting commission, and it's worked very well for us for the past 20 years. So I think it's an empty threat.
And interestingly, in the last two cycles, it's actually worked very well for Republicans, right? They've picked up seats in the legislature and picked up seats in the congressional delegation, yes, and they have a 6-3 advantage. So
the reality is, anytime gerrymandering occurs to favor one party over another is wrong, and both parties have done it in multiple states. It shouldn't happen. It should happen after the census, then we redistrict. Putting your thumb on the scale by gerrymandering is not appropriate. It's not right, and I don't think the voters will accept it.
All right, let's turn to Decision 2026. 6 months out from the election, polling by Republican-aligned firms shows Republican-held districts in Arizona, CD1, CD6, are swinging toward Democrats. The candidates there have tied themselves to President Trump. Is Donald Trump the problem?
I mean, if all of these special elections across the country are showing us anything, you know, districts that went for Trump by double digits now swinging completely the other way, I think that we can be, you know, excited about some of these elections. And I honestly don't even think it's necessarily limited to those two congressional districts. We could see surprises all over the state.
But here's my question for Democrats. Are they running from President Donald Trump and his policies, or are they running toward Democrats and their message?
I would say it's a little bit of both. And I'd say it also depends on the Democrat, right? Because we're not a monolith. Everybody has their own thoughts and opinions about these things. So I believe that, you know, we're seeing a rejection of the cost of living increases, inflation, and things like that we're seeing at the national level, gas prices. And we're also seeing an acceptance and an understanding that there is one side that does tend to work for working class families in Arizona.
What about that? Are they running from Trump or to Democrats?
I don't know if you could say they're running from Trump. CD1 is very different than CD6, and I think we could even throw CD2 in there along with CD6. CD1 is a unique animal because we had Swoboda, who I think is going to be great as Secretary of State, but she originally got in that race at Trump's request. she could have won that race because it is a purple district. That's why Schweikert has maintained his seat. The minute he said he was going to run for governor, I knew we lost that seat. It is very purple. We have a large number, actually more independents than Republicans or Democrats in our state.
And in that district.
Yes, and then you talk about Siscomani. I love him. I think he's fantastic. But the National Party does not play well with Arizona. And so they're not going to give any funding. And sadly, our elections are about who has the most money. I think that Siscomani is very vulnerable, and that breaks my heart. He's done great work, but I think it's a good possibility. But I think we can count CD1 as lost. I am concerned, like I said, about CD2.
All right. And CD, you mean Eli Crane's district?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Oh, a Democrat mentioned that to me the other day, and I thought, really? Okay, one to keep an eye on. Let's end with Prop 123. Katie Hobbs has been in office for 3.5 years now. It does not appear she is going to get a renewal of Prop 123 in the current budget. Prop 123 delivers $300 million a year to K-12 schools in Arizona. Why hasn't Hobbs been able to do it?
Well, I mean, why haven't the Republicans been willing to even discuss budgets with Governor Hobbs? Unfortunately, I mean, we've seen this at every level too, whether it's a nomination going forward with the nomination committee. There's just so many obstacles. So I think that the voters clearly want this, and I think they should at least have an opportunity to see it on the ballot.
Isn't this a chance for Republicans maybe to be kind of heroes and say, here, look what we're doing?
You know, Gress and I believe Mesner are the ones that have been pushing to actually get this through for quite some time, not just this budget season. I wonder if this has anything to do with Hobbs vetoing the bill that put a cap, or a minimum amount rather, on spending in the classroom. A bill was put forward spending minimum 60 cents of every dollar in the classroom, and she vetoed it. My question is, do the voters think that schools are spending too much money and not on our students? And that's why the Republicans don't want to push this forward. So sadly, I think she kind of cut her nose off to spite her face. We need to be responsible with the money, but we do need funding for our schools. K through 12 is very important. I'm running for school board. It's critical.
Okay, got to end it there. Lisa Everett, Jeannie Castine, thanks so much for joining us.